Hello, my friend. Welcome to today's podcast episode. And today is a chit chat, story time esque type of episode because I'm going to be sharing with you 3 stories about how 2 haters and 1 standoffish experience has changed how I show up on social media differently than others. And it comes with the territory of putting yourself out there online. But once again, I think that even if you are going to put yourself out there online, yes, there comes responsibility. But also, if you're a person who's commenting online, there does come with a responsibility in regards to what you say. Now, I'm not going to say the names of any of these people, but I wanted to tell you a story about 2 times that really did impact me big time when I was content creating, sharing social media, stuff like that, and how it impacted me, how it's just kind of a entertaining story I haven't spoken about, but I kind of want to. I'm kind of feeling the vibes, and it might get kind of spicy because while at the time back then it hurt my feelings, I'm now like, WTF, who do you think you were for saying these things to somebody that you don't even know? You don't know the whole story. And I could caveat and say that right away. Like, to me, to any person that you see online, you don't know the full scope and story of their life. You don't know the highest of highs. You don't know their lowest of lows and what their lives are like day in and day out, even if they are sharing their day to day, even if they are sharing lifestyle type content. So the first one I want to talk about was back in April of 2019. And this troll came at me hard for not losing the baby weight as quickly as she thought I quote unquote should, because I was a health and wellness expert. Now, remember, at this time, so it was April 2019, I was roughly 9 months postpartum with my second baby that I had in, I had my first in 2016. I had my second in July of 2018. So this comment came in when I wasn't even 1 year postpartum yet with my second. And she was talking about how she's like, I think you should absolutely be ashamed of yourself as a health and fitness person and how you've let your body go after having babies. Because in that moment, I was sharing how it was really hard to get dressed for this special event. I was going to one of my cousins, and I grew up in a family where cousins were like siblings. This cousin in particular, him and his wife still are some of my favorite people that are the greatest of people in the whole entire world. And I was so excited and so happy for them. And really all that fit me was a black one-piece jumpsuit that I borrowed from my mom. And I was sharing on social media like I had felt sad that I didn't have anything and didn't fit into anything of my own. And this woman went off on me. I remember sitting on the toilet crying, thinking, how could she say this to me? And she was a mother of a daughter who was like teenage years. And she's like, I'm 40 something years old and I don't even look like that, or I'd never let myself look like that after kids. And at the time, I was also carrying around a lot of shame because yes, I was working in the health and fitness industry. I was an online health and fitness coach at that time. So I was carrying shame about it myself. And it truly was a reflected mirror of like somebody saying this to me, but that doesn't count what I would say to her now. What I would say to this person now, I blocked her on social media, so I do not believe that we are even in each other's realms. But what I would say to this person now is like, go seriously F yourself. Like, do not talk to another woman this way. You do not need to be on my page talking to me like this. And I probably would stand up for myself more and stand up for other postpartum moms and stand up for other people who are really trying and having a hard time losing weight, whether it's postpartum weight or not. Because over the last 5 years, I've really had a different hindsight and understanding of how hard weight loss can be, because before I had kids, I did not have to work hard to be skinny and fit and like a size 2-4. I did not have to work hard at it. I happened to have a healthy lifestyle that did enhance and maintain my genetics, but I had never struggled with weight. And I would say it wasn't really until 2021 through 2025, that's when I've been really seeing progress right now, where it's like I never struggled with weight until I was in my 30s. And I would remember listening to a podcast with Alana Molstein, creator of To Be Mindset, and she was sharing how she had a client and she was conversing, and her client was, in her 50s or maybe in her 40s, that said, I've never had to really keep track of what I'm eating or pay attention to what I'm doing because I've just never struggled to lose weight. And Alana kind of stopped her and was talking to a group situation about how, like, yes, for some of us, it's going to be when there's teens or 20s, but for others it may be 50s, for others it may be 30s, but there's going to come a point in all of our lives where we start going, what worked before isn't going to work again. And what we did before isn't going to have the same result of what we used to do. And she was really talking about how, like, yeah, sometimes I feel like, oh, it sucks that part of my story is, and this is Alana, me interpreting what Alana was saying, where she was saying, sometimes I can feel bad about how it made me, I had to struggle with my weight as a kid and in my teens. But now she's, postpartum of 3 kids and doesn't struggle with her weight in her midlife because of what she learned and has gone through. And she helps clients that, never struggled with their weight until they hit a certain age. But she's like, instead of feeling bad about it, or instead of feeling like something is wrong with us right away, just be like, oh, this is my time to start being aware and having a better understanding. And to this person, I probably would have just maybe even not said anything and just blocked them. I now today, depending on the day, I maybe would agree with, like, okay, if this person is going to say something like this to me, then they're publicly saying that to everyone else. And it just really, really, really hurt. But it also was a time where I was like, I'm now a mom of 2. I don't want my body to be my business. I don't want my body to have to sell things. I don't want to show and share my body in that way. And even if I tried to, I would likely have to get a tummy tuck to have the type of abs that quote unquote sold something. And at that time and at this time, that's not something that I'm going to be doing. And so that person really did open up my mind to, like, I don't like how this body marketing, and I meant BODY, like marketing my body was how it impacted my business. And for people who are like, oh, I remember even saying back in my network marketing days, like, you don't have to have a picture perfect body, but, a lot of times the people who did got more credibility and got more likes and people wanting to work with them just because of how they looked. Whether that's right or wrong, it's indifferent. It's just the way that it is and was in the fitness industry. And so now, like, you guys, seriously, imagine being 9 months postpartum of your second, you sharing just like, hey, it does kind of stink that, like, I'm getting dressed for this really big, important moment for somebody that I love so very much, and nothing fits. Like, we've all had those moments, and then somebody comes in and just trolls me of how they think I'm just a disgrace and disgusting. I remember she used that word, and I'm like, I could not ever imagine telling another woman her body is disgusting. Right? Like, how crazy. But instead of me being in the mind space, I think this has to do with postpartum too. Instead of me being in the mind space of like, oh my gosh, who would say that? Like a person who I even want following me, I don't want this person to even follow me, just block her and move on. But at that time, I was so self-conscious on myself that it seeped in and made me feel awful about myself. It made me feel so awful about myself at the time because postpartum moms are vulnerable. Postpartum moms, sleepless nights, waking up and not feeling like yourself. Also, I was taking care of a toddler. Like, not only did I have a 9-month-old, but I had a 2.5-year-old too. Yikes. Whoa. Like, I had so much going on and so vulnerable to being hurt that I let it seriously get to me so much. The second time was, I remember this was around 2020, and I was sharing about my husband being at work and I was home with the kids. And I was really just talking about and communicating, like, my husband goes to work, I'm home with the kids. And I don't think I wasn't crying on social media about it. I wasn't being like, oh, poor me, pity me. I was just kind of being like, oh, it's kind of been a day. I'm tired with being with literally this would have been 1.5-year-old and 3.5-year-old at the time. Like, yeah, if you're home with a 1.5-year-old and a 3.5-year-old, you're tired. Like, you are tired. And this girl came at me once again. I don't even recall her name, but I remember showing these DMs to my best friend about how she was a farmer's wife. And I could, like, if I think that my situation is bad, then oh my gosh, her being a farmer's wife where her husband, she like went off about what her schedule and her routine. And I think she had more kids than I did. And I was just like, whoa, 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 whoa. And actually, I'm really glad that I showed my best friend that DM because she very much was like, okay, do we have to compare each other's hards? And I remember in my head even thinking like, actually, I do semi understand what it's like to be a farmer's wife because I'm a farmer's daughter. My dad was the one who was like up early in the morning, not home, late at night. We were bringing food out to the field. And also, I know that my dad didn't work winters. And so in my head, and now like this will kind of lead into the third story that I'm going to talk about. I'm like, I'm not gonna like openly share every single nugget about our lives, our schedules, what it's like for me and what my husband's schedule is and all of this because like it doesn't matter. We don't have to be comparing hard to hard. And it's not like the mom who's in the most exhausting situation is the one that's like the warrior or the champion because we all, whether you're in an easier season of life now or in a harder season of life now, there's going to be better days ahead and there are going to be harder days ahead. And I remember just thinking, and I remember part of this thinking was because I had my best friend kind of helping me put this lens on of like, well, we don't have to sit and compare each other's hard. And where I say like, oh, well, yes, that would be hard about this, that, and the other thing. There's also parts where I would like, it would be nice if like this, that, and the other thing, where other people's shoes look a little bit lighter and brighter. And other times it's like, no. So it's kind of goes back to that whole, the grass is not greener on the other side in most situations and cases. But the other part is, I remember a couple times when I was posting and sharing, now this is the third thing, when I was posting and sharing online about like what me and the kids were doing in the day to day, because back in this time frame, it was very much like, if you're a mom on social media, you share what you did for the day and where you went and what you did with your kids and what you were doing with your kids. And I remember having a follower at this time and they were kind of like, oh, I noticed you are going to this place on Tuesday mornings, like have to come catch up with you there. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. And it was not that this person in particular I was worried about, but I was like, wow, this person realized this is my routine and this is my schedule, that anybody else could. Like, if this person notices that type of trend, then anybody else could. And so now, even today, when we go do something as a family or with the kids, it's often posted as a latergram. When I go on a run or when I go do something, it's often posted as a latergram. I'm not sharing it in the moment. And I remember even I was texting with a friend, and she's like, oh, I know you're out on a run right now. And I had posted that I did my run, kind of how I do in my stories. And I flat out told her, I'm like, that was a while ago. Like, I'm not into sharing real time. And I would say, if you are thinking about, or if you are creating content in some type of way, really think about posting latergrams. Like, take the pictures and the videos in the moment and post them later, just because you never know. And maybe that's just something, some might think like, Joelle, you are either thinking really highly of yourself, like you're gonna develop somebody to be that interested in you, or to really have an understanding of like, you just want to be careful these days. You just really, really, really want to be careful these days. And I remember getting that DM of like me showing and sharing my day to day, and somebody else recognizing the consistency and the patterns in it, that I was like, oh, I actually don't think I want people to know this side of me. And also, I think social media has changed a lot. I think the online business realm has changed a lot. But back in the day, it was different in the sense and aspect of like, we're not thinking about a lot of these things. And especially when I had no kids, and especially when my kids were little, I wasn't as conscious of what I'm showing and sharing in the moments. And now I'm just really hyper aware of them. I actually really love this about, and why podcasting became my thing, because we all know that in 2020 the internet got crazy, and it just was like, I was starting to feel, I talked about in 2019, I'm like, I don't want my body to be my business, but that is my business, that is how I make money. So it's kind of like this line I was trying to walk along here. And then in 2020 the internet went nuts with just people being so polar opposite of information and news and current events and all of that I was like, I'm going to just talk on my podcast, because you can give context on your podcast. You can really have depth and conversation on your podcast. And so from 2020 to 2020, I mean, you guys, if you've been around that long, you guys know I was, and still don't, share a lot on social media. I'm sharing on and in the podcast, and it's, topics, and it's in relation, and a lot of times even my girl chats, the things that I'm talking about would be the things that I would share about in stories, but I'm sharing about them here on the podcast, because it just feels so much better. Because while it is a connection that we have together, and it is me creating content, it's also very much like in depth. I can communicate and I can say things in a different way. It just feels better. And this is when I talk to my clients, this is my thing that I tell them all the time. When you stop talking about your podcast is going to stop growing, whether that be in conversation or on your social media. Because if you've been creating content on Instagram, and that's where your people know you to be, just you starting a podcast and even launching and sharing about 3 to 10 episodes, they're not used to knowing this is where your premium content's going to be. And so for years and years and years and years and years, it was just like almost every single one of my stories somehow talked about my podcast and what I was talking about on the podcast, because I knew this is the community that I wanted to grow. And now you guys are a much larger community and audience than my social media. But that was years and years and years of talking about it and sharing and going on other people's podcasts and consistently posting, right? Consistently being here. But oh man, I don't even know how I feel about social media now. I actually am feeling like I need to take a little bit of a social media break. I think I'm going to take I want to start taking a week off every single month. Now with my job and with my stuff, a lot of times I'm having to link it, but I'm meaning like getting it off of my phone, because creating or consuming content on social media on a laptop is entirely different than consuming it on your phone. Like, it genuinely is way more addictive when you're on your phone. I mean, I don't have Facebook on my phone anymore. I check in my Facebook on my computer, and it is just so crazy how I spend a small amount of moments on Facebook. But if I get sucked into Instagram or if I get sucked into TikTok, I am on there for an embarrassing amount of time. So I'm even feeling like now I'm showing up and sharing. My client roster is full at this moment. So it's like, I don't need to be creating content to be building my business and building my brand. It's for fun, and it is for, I don't necessarily post like podcast educational stuff because I don't want to be known as like the podcast guru. I want to have my clients record and I do the rest. I want to be in the work. I want to be in the behind the scenes. I want to be the one that takes that work off of their shoulders so they can just record, enjoy recording, and just know I'm going to get their episode out and ready. I give them some deliverables. I enjoy, meaning like emails for the episode. If they record via video, then I'm cutting clips for them or anything like that. And I really am enjoying it. And there have been times where people are talking to me about scaling the business and like, you could teach other people to become producers. You could start doing this and that and the other thing. And while sometimes I will do what I call podcast audits, where if you have an existing podcast and you're like, I just want to hire you in for a month to help me elevate it, I can create the new intro and outro for you. We can talk about some strategies. I've had a lot of people say that has been really helpful, but because I'm producing so much week by week for my clients, I don't have a lot of time to devote to extra projects right now. And that also means I don't have to be on social media being like, work with me, work with me, work with me. And it's a good feeling to be at, especially when coming from network marketing. It was always just like, okay, well, you hit this mark this month. Well, let's go for more next month. Let's go for more next month. Let's go for more next month. And while I am all about the stretch and I'm all about goal setting, that over time, which remember my career in network marketing was 14 years long, there's burnout. There was definitely burnout. I think that was just another thing that just hit me in 2022-ish, was just, I am so burnt out of this. And starting this new endeavor has been really, really good for me in having a good balance in life, family, business, and even social media. But I've learned a lot. And those are just two little random stories, or a couple little random stories that I have about my experience online with trolls, and, really making sure that I'm careful and being conscious of what I'm posting online. And if you enjoyed this episode just because it was random and there were some tidbits in it, please let me know, because I would love to share more like this, where it's not necessarily like, here's how you learn XYZ, but just chit-chatting. And if you have any questions, please come on over to Instagram and ask them. I absolutely love connecting with you guys, and I really have appreciate your feedback on the last 4 episodes. The last 4 episodes you guys have really loved, and I'm so glad. I'm really, really, really glad you guys are liking this really lifestyle type of content and these lifestyle chit-chat type of episodes. You are the absolute best. I so appreciate you being here and listening, my friend, and I will talk to you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you loved what you heard or you want to share your favorite episode topics, please leave a rating and review. This helps the podcast growth and gives people an idea of what the podcast is all about. Something new and exciting that I wanted to share with you before we go is that we now have a Patreon page. This has replaced the Feminine Edge collective community in a cohesive place that is easier for me to manage and cheaper for you. If you are interested in our monthly classes, exclusive day in the life vlogs, Bible studies, community Q&A, and more, go to patreon.com/livingInSync and join for just $5 a month. Check out the show notes for any links or details of things referenced in today's episode, and I look forward to chatting with you in the next one.